Hello, and welcome to Spirit Decoding. This is episode 4 of Morning Moment with Spirit. The subject is acceptance. As always, if you want to be able to read along and find out the source for the information we're about to break down for you, please go to Ethos Communing on our Facebook page. While you're there, please give us a like. You'll be able to see when we actually post channel Morning Moment with Spirit and be able to keep track and actually see it for yourself and read it. And then as well, here on Spirit Decoding, myself, Korban Ethos, is going to break down the actual meaning of what Spirit said into a more concrete, understandable way to have a discussion and actually talk about it. So let's get started. I'm going to start going ahead and reading what Spirit wrote for that day. This is from 9/24/2021. So you can go to, again, Ethos Communing and find the post from 9/24 to 2021 to read along. And Spirit says, and I quote, "Dear child of God, there is much to learn of what God created, but you must be willing to look up to truly see your mind as it was created, and through this, how it properly works. It means changing the way you are being now, which does not work with the flow of your mind as God created it, to working with the flow of creation. It means joining the flow of the universe as it flows versus your concept of how life operates now. It means realizing and accepting that you have it wrong and must relearn how to exist within that vehicle." End quote. So let's start there. Spirit in this section is going to be breaking down for us the importance, once again, of understanding and accepting what we're currently holding and why it does not work. Before you can really focus, in their opinion, on what the answer is, the first thing the student must do is empty the cup. You have to empty the cup with what you have in it, or you're not going to be able to properly receive what Spirit's trying to give you, what they're pouring into your cup to hold, to consider, and to taste. If you just pour it into what's already there, it's going to contaminate what they're trying to give you, what they're trying to get you to experience. And so the first step is to empty the cup. That sounds nice. We understand it intellectually, and we say we do that, but do we really? And that's what Spirit is bringing us our attention to here, is to really examine and look at, do we really let go of what we currently believe? And if we do, then how do we explain the way life is working on this planet right now? Because if we did let it go and we did accept the new, then it wouldn't make sense for the chaos happening right now. And yes, it's part of a larger change, but that doesn't excuse what's been happening for the last 100 years, or the 100 years before that, or the 100 years before that. If you believe in past lives, those were our lifetimes continually building the same issues over and over again. And yes, things get better, but the heart of it, we're still holding on to. We're still trying to work it out. And the question is, what are we trying to work out? Are we trying to create an experience, or are we trying to understand what we're working around doesn't work for us and we need to let it go? How can we create the new if we're still holding on to the old? And the first thing is the realization of, what is it that we're holding on to? We talk about it, but we don't really make that personal. And that's what this is about, what Spirit is trying to tell us. And they start it right off with the first line, "Dear child of God, there is much to learn of what God created." Let's stop right there. So the first part of the sentence that they're talking about is what God created. That's an important point, because it shows what Spirit is trying to fill our cups with. They tell us there is much to learn of what God created. Okay, fascinating. Some of you believe in God, some of you don't. Some of you have beliefs about God that is a multitude of ways as far as you think what that energy and what that being is. So it gets complicated right away, because at that point we have a pre-assumption that we think we know God. And it's not a question of whether or not we do. The question here is what does Spirit have to say according to their experience God is? And that's the key. Because we automatically assume, oh, well, I'm being asked to let go of what my beliefs are of God. Well, my religion states that if I do that, then the result is this. So you shut down. Or our experiences with anything in the sense of organized religion, that the moment that we come into contact of, let me tell you about God, it's a fight for your life moment. Because they're going to automatically tell you in subtle, not so subtle, manipulative, and direct, aggressive ways that through their teachings, you either believe like I believe about God, or you're going to burn in hell. And there are several religions to choose from that have this type of belief. So first things first is, that's a loaded statement that Spirit just said. And I want to stop a second to really address that issue. That is a loaded statement. Do we really want to know what God created? There's God on the mountainside, a burning bush saying, I am. Do we really want to go up to that bush and say, tell me more? Because for the most part, everyone who has tried that has gotten burned somehow. Hasn't ended well for them. Added stress, trials and tribulations and testing onto their lives. So do we really want to know what God created? And it's not something that we look at like a bunch of children standing around talking among ourselves, trying to decide that among ourselves. It's personal. Do you really want to know what God created? Now, here's the thing. The heaviness of that statement, the weight of it, is palatable. You can feel it. Don't make it so intense. It really isn't. Because you're not being asked to exchange your views for Spirit's views. Let's just put that right up front. It's a consideration. It's hearing them out. It's not forgetting everything that you have in your background. It's letting go of it long enough to properly perceive and consider what Spirit is going to say from their experience as energy, with no body, no vehicle, what they claim to be in the experience of God, and what that is. Now, to me, that's someone that's a spiritual seeker. Go ahead. Please continue. You have my attention. Because that is so much more direct, and to me, as a spiritual seeker, looking for that light, that's important to me. You're going to go into sharing about the experience of God. Yes. And continue. I want to know about this. And it's not from the perspective of, I'm going to believe it at face value. That should never happen. It's a matter of taking the information in to consider it, to compare, to look at what you have, to look at how they experience life, and find a way to shift what you have somewhere along the way of what you're willing to let go, to hold on more clearly to the energy being presented as you feel that it is right to do. So if you caught the intensity of that first opening statement, good for you. Don't let it be so intense. It's a trigger word for us because they use the word God. If you didn't catch that, then go back and read that again. Because look at what they just offered to put into our cup. There is much to learn of what God created. But, now we go on to the second part. But you must be willing to look up to truly see your mind as it was created, and through this, how it properly works. So what Spirit is saying here is that we have to look up. Look up from what? What are we currently looking at? That's a good question to start with. What do we need to look up from? Well, what are we currently perceiving? And there's that full cup in front of us because we already think we know what's in it. We're comfortable with that. We're comfortable of knowing what's in that cup. We don't like surprises, and we certainly do not like change. When someone criticizes what's in our cup, we get angry. We get upset. In fact, we'll kill each other over that, depending upon the severity of what was poked at. Humanity has killed each other over daring to point out something in our cup that we perceive, what we perceive as real, is false. Or if they dare to live their life in a way that doesn't match what's in our cup, in a group mind way. If someone goes too far against society and goes against the joint belief of what's in our cup, and we look up and see them acting in a way that is so different than what's supposed to be in this cup, we will take the extreme measure to eradicate it just to make what's in the cup normal again. It's a simple solution. And what's the motive? Well, the motive is we don't like change. We like things staying the same. And it's why one generation has issues with the next generation, because the generation before is changing things. They don't know what they're doing. They can't possibly have enough intelligence to figure out what they know. They'll figure it out because they'll figure it out the same way that I see that it is. They'll learn. We don't like change. We like things staying the same, because if they are the same, it means we can depend on it and it gives us normalcy. And we believe that gives us safety. And there, folks, is the foundation of fear. So look at what Spirit is now saying, second part of that sentence. But you must be willing to look up to truly see your mind as it was created, and through this, how it properly works. So Spirit just said that until we let go of how we look up from what we're currently perceiving, we cannot possibly see our mind as it was created. All right, what does that mean? As it was created. We think we know what that means because we're going back into our cup to pull from that experience, because what else do we have? But do we really know how our mind was created? Because if you did, would you be in the experience of God? Because where else would that be? God created us as minds, if that's what you want to call it, energy, a sense of being, and we existed. So if we were aware of what was created, which would supposedly be by God, then we would be aware of God fully and completely, because where else would we be? And from this, it says how it properly works. So according to the statement, first, we need to look up from what we perceive, focus, learn what was created, which is what God created, the original Big Bang. Here's the universe. Here we are in existence. Before physicality, we were. Physicality came next to create the experience of being able to go ahead and have a physical experience of what we were, what we are. So it's both connected. But going back to as we were created, this goes back into originally what God created. And until we can perceive that, how it properly works, it being our mind, we can't understand how our mind truly works until we see what God created. And right there, folks, that comma, there's the karmic mirror. what was created, comma, how it properly works. Currently, we're into the point of we have to look up, break our perceptions on what we think we see. With me so far? So we've still got the mirror in front of us. Whatever it is that we're perceiving, comma, is what we're getting mirrored back. Look up and see how our mind was actually created, perceive something different, perceive what is actually in existence, which is, as I said previously, they call eternity, comma, you get to perceive how it properly works because you're perceiving what God created. And that breaks the illusion. So it's actually an important and powerful start to this simple little section, 3 paragraphs that Spirit wrote that day. Let's go into the second sentence. It means changing the way you're being now, which does not work with the flow of your mind as God created it, to working with the flow of creation. So again, there it is, properly in another way describing the first sentence. Changing the way we are being, and as we've been building on the concept, whatever we are being, we are experiencing. And I'll bring it back to the previous episode to talk about that again briefly so that you can grasp on that. We're in a supermarket. We're annoyed at the checkout line. The person in front of us is being stupid and putting stuff back. The person behind us is getting their coupons ready and dropping them all over the place and banging us in the back with their cart. The other person, the bagger is not doing their job and phasing off and looking into space. And we just need to get out of the store because we're just annoyed. What does that feel like? What thoughts and feelings accompany that? We've all had moments where that has happened. No matter how spiritual we think we are, I'm a channel. Put someone slow in the fast lane and back up traffic for miles, and I'm annoyed. I will flip you off as I drive past. And I consider myself a spiritual person, but I have buttons. We all have buttons. It's the way that it's part of being born. It gives us color. So in this situation, looking at it, being as a reminder means, what are you experiencing in that moment? That is your mind. All the physical things may be happening around you, but what you experience from them is your mind. It's not connected to the event around you. You are creating that. You are coloring that. You are making that happen. And you can use whatever colors you want, or no colors at all. No reaction to it, and be focusing on what was originally created and being connected to harmony. The idea of the supposed liberation is not as complicated as everyone wants to make it out, according to Spirit. When you grasp and fully understand that whatever you're being in that moment, as much as you think, it's because of the people, places, and things around you. It's your experience, it's your mind. And yes, someone may be being inefficient with coupons, maybe being rude, maybe being this, whatever that is. That's what they're experiencing. What are you experiencing from that? That is your mind. And you can go from the most negative to the most positive reaction to it. It's still an experience. It's still your mind. You're still creating it. And then, you're talking about duality. I'm going to be dense or negative about it. I'm going to be positive about it. Or as we like to think, an enlightened point of view. It's a duality. It slides back and forth. There is the push-pull that Spirit keeps talking about. constantly being pushed between those two poles. The pull towards being negative or dense, the push away from it to go ahead and be positive. Oop, we're tired, we're cranky, we're slipping towards that negative or dense. Oop, we realize what we're doing and we push away from it to go to the positive. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. Day after day, month after month. Is there another flavor from this restaurant we call life? Or is there only the push-pull? Constantly being corrected on which one we should be, because no matter which one we are, it's always moving, it's always changing, it's always flowing, and we should be more of this, less of this, more of this, less of that. We shouldn't have done this, we should have done this. Instead, push-pull, push-pull. And how much energy is that taking for us to create a sense of being, constantly trying to stand on ground that's shaking under our feet, constantly moving and shifting on us? So hopefully that made sense. The other option Spirit's talking about here, and it's subtle, so I want to really bring your attention to this to set the foundation of what it is that they're saying, is that there is another option. We don't have to have the push-pull. We can, if we choose to, understand and perceive what God created, because it's still in existence. It is what keeps everything in creation. And since it still exists, it's still present in all areas, from what we consider the worst to the best. It's always present, which makes it always an option. It is what keeps our minds in creation, because we are creation. We are part of that flow. So watch how Spirit says this now. It means changing the way you are being, which is what we just described. Push, pull, back, forth, dense, positive, negative, positive, however you want to see it. More or less, more or less. So the way you are being now, which does not work with the flow of your mind. Wait, what? Spirit is saying that this push-pull, constantly shifting back and forth, being dense, being positive, being dense, being positive, does not work with the flow of our mind. Well, now that's certainly interesting. We certainly don't have experience with that, of understanding that, because if we did, we would know our mind and would understand us completely. But they just said that it does not work with the flow of our mind. And here it comes again. As God created it, to working with the flow of creation. So our minds, according to Spirit, was created to work with the flow of creation. Well, now that kind of makes sense. Because if God is in everything and God is energy, God is creation, that's where everything sprang from. And we were created within that experience. It can't create us separate, because there is no separate. It is. It is in everything. So if that is assumed true, then is the earth outside of God? I mean, it's physical, it's here. So is that outside of God? How could God create something outside of itself? If we have children, they're part of our DNA, aren't they? Can we have children and have them come out particularly without our DNA? You know, alcoholism runs in my family. Can I choose to have a child without the gene to make them sensitive to alcohol that way? Is that my choice? Or is that part of my DNA? Will they inherit that? Well, of course they will. Along with my balding effect. and hopefully my good looks and smile. That'd be nice. But my point here is that when you have a child, it comes from your DNA. It's not outside that realm of experience. It is what makes it. So when God gave birth, if God is everything and then created it, where else could it be but within itself? Otherwise, you're saying there's something else besides God. Now we're on a totally different subject. But even to say there was, if God was going to create life, where else could it do it but from within itself, like us with our DNA? So Spirit is saying, according to their premise of experience, is that we were created to work with the flow of creation. And that's our real mind. But we don't obviously remember that. We don't know that. Or we wouldn't be doing to our planet what we're doing now. We wouldn't be living our life the way we're living it now. So, next sentence it says, it means joining the flow of the universe as it flows versus your conception of how life operates now. I'm going to include the last sentence in this one. It means realizing and accepting that you've got it wrong and must relearn how to exist within that vehicle. So, all right, it means joining the flow of the universe, okay, as it flows. Well, what the hell is that, right? The flow of the universe? Like, can we just see this on a miniseries, please? This sounds like a sci-fi book. What is the flow of the universe? Are we going to start going ahead and casting magic, start using the Force? How does this work? Because it sounds sneakily like that. And you have to be honest here. But again, this is something we don't understand. If you believe in spirit, and that there are beings out there that have a liberated point of view that do give messages, whether you call them angels, whether you call them your divinity, doesn't matter. That's semantics. It's wording. The energy of their sense of being is what's important. And when you encounter them, there's no mistaking that. You can call it what you want. None of those words was born or created from that experience. So we made them up. We used the best words possible to describe it. So it doesn't really matter what you call it. No. Is it important to understand the state of being and experience that with them? Well, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of important. So here means joining the flow of the universe as it flows. Okay, this we have no experience with. Versus your conception of how life operates now. Bingo! We have experience here. How does life operate now? What are the rules for life? What are the limitations? These you have answers to. And according to Spirit, this you must give up. That's asking a lot. That is huge. Huge. That's when our good old friend fear steps in. But bottom line, not going to sugarcoat it, they just said, you must give up your conception of how life operates now in exchange for the flow of the universe as it flows, to understand that sense of being. And which means, being blunt again, you can't have both in the same space. And the same space being your perception, what you have your attention upon. Final sentence, it means realizing and accepting that you have it wrong and must relearn how to exist within that vehicle, the vehicle being our body. First part of the sentence, it means realizing and accepting that you have it wrong. Those are like the strongest words. I've been doing this for over 30 years as a channel. I started when I was 17 years old to learn. Went to school for it. was trained how to channel, you know, given instruction, given rules, given conduct, moral training, the whole 9 yards. And that is the strongest I have ever heard Spirit say a concept like that. To put it bluntly, you have it wrong. Now, let's break that down. Spirit is not saying with a judgment, you were wrong. Ugh. God, grow up. Get it straight already. Get your head out of your... They're not saying that. They're saying you must understand and come to accept and realize you have it wrong. Realizing and accepting. Inner, all that is inner, not outer. That you have it wrong. That what's in your cup, what you are currently perceiving, does not bring you joy. Does not make you connected. It leaves you disconnected. And it's understanding the difference between the two. Living your life connected or living your life disconnected from a state of being, not an intellectual concept and not an emotional concept. The thoughts and emotion match and follow your state of being. Let me say that again. Your thoughts and emotions follow your state of being. Back to the example of the previous episode. Let's connect this. What happens when we're really in a grouchy, depressed, dark mood and our energy gets dense and we're just a contracted point of view on everything in life and what is possible? Everything we see around us is experienced from a state of being, from that perception. And that's what our attention is on. What doesn't work? What won't work? Why it won't work? What can't happen? What I don't have? What I'm not? What I should have done? Ugh. Onward and onward. And then when it lifts, the same subjects that we were just looking at, because this is our life, right? This is our life. The same subjects we were just perceiving from now an expanded or positive point of view. Well, yes, we can get that done. No, that's not impossible. God, why did I think that way in the first place? This is so much easier. But the point of it was that it was the same subject, our life, things in our lives, and our thoughts and emotions followed what? I was depressed. Why were you depressed? I was anxious. Why were you anxious? Oh, well, let me try to find a reason. Oh, it must be the boyfriend. Yes, that's it. And off we go. And we start thinking and finding a reason in life to make it real. But reality is, you're in a state of being. And when you're in that state of being, your thoughts and emotions followed it. The thoughts and emotions are there to paint the physical world around you. They give construct to physical experience. Their beauty is that they are 100% flexible. They will go from the dense post to the positive post. It's still this or that. It's what you're always comparing to. It's no different than saying, I'm cold. Are you freezing or are you hot? I'm feeling God. Is that dense negative God or is that positive ethereal God? Because there's both in our experience on this world. And sometimes, unfortunately, simultaneously. So which one are you experiencing? Well, which one do you have your attention on? Because the one that you have your attention on is where your will goes. That's your point of creation. And that creates a state of being. And the emotions and thoughts don't care. They don't care. If you can picture an atom and have the electrons flowing around them, and they just in harmony flow around them. There's two electrons spinning around at the same time. One is thought, one is emotion. Around they go. And the atom heats up and the energy goes faster. And those electrons spread out and go faster and wider. But they're still circling the atom. The atom gets cold. And I'm not using exact scientific terms, but at that point, the energy of the atom condenses. In comes the electrons spinning closer to the atom, still moving, and guess what? They're still following the atom. They don't care. They follow that state of being, whatever that atom is experiencing, because they're just part of it, as are your thoughts and feelings. So we use them and understand them that they help define the who, what, where, when, and why. And they do. That's their purpose. That's the point. They help define who, what, where, when, and why. Which automatically lets us know what we need to physically change in order to make it right. But the truth of the matter is, when we change the physical, we still play the same issue over and over again with a new who, a new what, a new where, and a new why. We're still playing the same game. And we've done this through lifetimes, where we carry the issue with us, still playing out our role, and there's our emotion and thoughts swinging around, painting everything around us. And they don't care, because they're just doing their job. They're just doing their job. So in order, back to the sentence of realizing and accepting, 2 points. Realizing, enlightenment moment, and accepting that we have it wrong. You must relearn how to exist within that vehicle. So if the purpose of that vehicle, that body, is not to focus on the energy of what's happening in that sense of life, the good, the bad, the thoughts and the feelings about it, according to Spirit, that leaves one other option. And this is why they say it really isn't that difficult. Because once you realize and accept that what you're doing is not leaving you connected. Pure and simple. I don't feel connected. I don't feel whole. It doesn't bring satisfaction that lasts, where in this moment, I am complete. I can have a momentary sense of fullness, which quickly drains and is gone quick. I mean, if you want to see a smile on my face, put a new, cell phone in my hand that's top of the line. You'll see me smile. But by the next day, am I now frowning again? Yeah. Why? Well, because this jerk cut me off on the way to the supermarket. That's why. This person was going slow. My job just called, and guess what? I have to redo that onward and onward. For every occasion, there's an excuse. For every excuse, there's an occasion. Because that's what the thoughts and emotions do. And you are following them like a slave. You are trapped by them, is what Spirit is saying. And until you realize that's where your attention is, and it's the same old, whether it's this life, last life, next life, you can't realize and accept that you have it wrong. And by saying you have it wrong, I said it was the strongest words that Spirit has used before. There's a reason why. Again, not them judging you, you realizing and accepting. It's because it makes the change that this will no longer work. This is no longer acceptable. And it's no different than realizing, I've been going to work this way and I just found a shortcut that shaves off 20 minutes time and a third of the traffic. Are you going to continue going back the old way because you know it? Or are you going to do the new way because you just got back some of your time and less stress because there's less traffic? Well, duh. You're taking a new way. We all do that. And once other people learn about it, so will they. It's in our nature. Faster, easier. And the point is, what made the change? Why did you change traffic patterns? Why did you change the way to work? Because you realized and accepted that you had it wrong. This is a better way. It's more efficient. It works better. It makes me feel better. And that's enough. It really isn't that complicated. It's not a liberating moment that you need a chorus line of angels to suddenly appear to do a line dance for you, to bless you with their presence in order to get this. Our continual and consecutive lives is built on the fact of us following our thoughts and emotions, believing over and over again the who, the what, the where, the why. And the karma that we are working out is our attachment to the who, the what, the where, and the why. Let me prove that to you. We all have that one that we've been in a relationship with. You know, him or her. And yikes. And it really did us in. It was one of those situations that we were powerless against. We knew it was wrong. And we did it anyway. We knew we should leave. And we stayed anyway. Excuse after excuse after excuse. That sense of absolute powerlessness over someone else. And eventually we break free. Took a lot, but we break free. And then we continue to attract mates that are similar to that one. Over and over and over again. And it could be from the boyfriend-girlfriend scenario. It could be from mom and pop issues. It could be a combination because we love being creative with our issues. Let's do a dash of this, a dash of that, and let's throw in terror. Okay, stir. Now we have something to talk about. We love victimizing ourselves. So we have all this stuff going on. But the point of it is that we're continuing the pattern over and over again because we haven't let go of the karma. And we say, oh, it's karma. It keeps coming back until you learn a lesson. Don't tell me about learning the lesson. Tell me about what lesson you're supposed to be learning. Oh, that's right. To let it go. To let what go? What are you trying to let go? Well, I don't know. Exactly. You can't communicate it. You can't talk about it. You can't describe it. You can't say what the experience was. You just know you keep getting drawn to it like a moth to a flame. We have all been there. We are all there now. That's what karma is. Karma is the attachment from the thoughts and the emotions of who, what, where, when, and why. And when you put your power of creation into those, you created an energy, a life, because you are creation. And so you empowered the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. And when we finally, if you're going to really get into that moment, let go of that pattern of attracting that type into our lives, it's because at that point we understood the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and what we were getting from it. And we no longer want it. Oh, wait, back up. What happened? Well, that's right. We just realized and accepted that we were wrong. Poof. The energy from the karma goes. And suddenly, there are other options for us to try for people in our lives. The pattern no longer continues. And so, realizing and accepting that we have it wrong allows us to relearn how to exist within that vehicle. But this is a big one. Spirit is not saying about realizing that we are wrong on accepting that type of person in our life. That's a small slice of the pie. Spirit is talking about how we baked the pie to begin with, not the slice we're looking at. They're talking about understanding how we bake that pie to begin with, because we all have to eat our karma. And we may be dealing with whatever slice we have on our plate, but there's a whole pie sitting there waiting for us to eat and digest. A whole pie. And no, we can't. Well, there's a point of minds where they realize at once and the whole pie is liberated. The karma goes. That's really nice. Those people, they go to the right instead over there. You're here with me where we're real. We don't learn that fast and we don't accomplish that much. We go slowly. It's not instant liberation. If that's your experience, God bless. Good for you. As for the rest of us, well, that takes a little bit more work. So here we are, still cutting off little pieces of the pie, putting on our plate, and working on that. And as for the rest of the pie, I'll get to that next life. Not realizing how much I just baked this life to add to that pie. Because I'm still creating the karma. How? Because I get into the who, the what, the where, and the why. With my thoughts and emotions. And I firmly believe that the issue is outside of me. And I am the victim. And there goes my power of creation from outside myself, from inside myself, outside myself, and now I'm tied to it. And who created the chains to it? I did. So let's get into the next paragraph. Spirit says, if you value your life as it is now, then these lessons are not for you. If you constantly struggle finding value in life and the way it flows, then take a moment and listen and consider our words. This may be the answer you have been seeking, praying for, demanding in desperation, but only you can discover the truth. This will take work on your part to undo what you have done and come to the understanding of why you would change this. End quote. So next paragraph. And let's start with the first sentence, because just because you're receiving information doesn't mean you're ready for the information. Just because we're talking about changing something on a monumental level doesn't mean you're driving with that. Don't worry about it. You'll do it when you're ready. When you're ready, you'll do it. And no sooner. So understand Spirit's sentence when I say, if you value your life as it is now, then these lessons are not for you. Period. End of statement. And it really is about what you find value in. If you're kicking back and loving this life and working within its confines and you feel, yeah, this is enough, then don't change anything. You're not going to want to change something that you don't really want to change. So don't get caught up in that. This is not for you. It really is that simple. Entertaining, something to consider and file for a rainy day, so then it may come in later in life, whether it's this one or the next one or the next 8, who knows? It doesn't matter. Free will. If you value your life as it is now, then these lessons are not for you. But that doesn't stop you from considering it and listening to it. Now, the next part, if you constantly struggle finding value in life and the way it flows, then take a moment and listen and consider our words. So again, they put it very bluntly as far as looking at what the key indicator is going to be that if this is for you. First off, it's going to be pulling at your heart. You're going to be sitting in your seat, leaning forward, listening with all your intent because you know something's happening here. You may not know what, but you know something is happening here. You're listening with all your being. And the key indicating is that you're struggling to try to find value in your life and the way it flows. It doesn't feel natural. You know something's wrong, but you don't know what. That's the key indicator that this is for you. And as Spirit says, take a moment and listen and consider our words. They do not say believe our words. You can't believe what Spirit believes because that's going to go into the point of religion. I'm believing it because divinity says I should believe in it, so therefore I have to believe in it, and so I'm just going to say I believe in it. But believing in it under those terms does not produce experience. It does not invite divinity in. It keeps it still at arm's length and says, yeah, I believe. You know how powerful that is? It's as powerful as being told by my mate, hey, would you take out the trash? And guess what I forget to do when I leave the house? But I said, I believe. Yep, got it. Was I listening? No. I was just believing. Absolutely. I intended to, yeah. Sure. But I didn't actually commit to it. And that's the difference. And so understand it's not a matter of going ahead and believing in what they say. It's just considering it. Because the work that happens when it comes to actual self-change is going to be inside you and not outside you. And that means Spirit can't give it to you. Period. It has to be done within. And if they could, well, wouldn't they have done it already? I mean, think about that. If, supposedly saving this planet is so important, and the issue is a lack of consciousness, or a lack of willingness to change, a lack of willingness to do, and, this is what, divinity, God, whatever you want to call it, believes, then wouldn't it have just done it already through us? Why does it need our permission? So just do it. But it won't. It can't. Because that's not free will. So that's why consider the words, don't believe the words. And you may feel like, I know that to be true. Knowing is not enough. You have to be willing to act on it, or it's not going to produce experience. So the next sentence is, this may be the answer you have been seeking, praying for, demanding in desperation, but only you can discover this truth. This will take work on your part to undo what you have done and come to an understanding of why you would change this. So let's look at that last sentence. This will take work on your part to undo. And there it is. You have to undo what your mind has created. If you, well, I'm going to get off to you and say we. If we, and I think this is a fair statement, are following our thoughts and emotions and believe that because we use them to paint the who, what, where, when, and why, and we believe that is real, and I'll stop right there and say, okay, now, is that a true statement so far? Well, let's just take a look at our lives. Do we actually get out of our seats to do things in life based on who, what, where, when, and why? Well, yeah, we do. Just take a look at your planner. You know, why do you go to work? To take care of the who, what, where, when, and why. Why do you get in a car to drive there? To take care of the who, what, when, and why. Why do you go to the store? Same reason. It's what our life is based on. Why do you get rid of someone out of your life for supposedly being unhealthy? Because you examine the who, what, when, where, and why. Do we believe that? Because within that, and that's the thing, that's the mental part of it, that's the explanation, but now you have to add the state of emotions that go into that. And in that moment, what were you feeling? So we'll bring it back to, the ex that we got rid of. We know that it's not good for us. We know that we're not moving ahead. We know that we're falling behind because of this person in our life. No matter what, we're always cleaning up after them, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally. They're shattering our relationships with people that are close to us because of their being unhealthy, which is their choice. We mentally understand this. And yet there we are still in bed with them next month. Now we had the emotions. And I don't like when I feel this way about this. I don't like being around my family and how that makes me feel. Them looking at the fact thinking that I can do better than this person. I was embarrassed at a function at work when this person was there with me and they were acting like a jerk. And I felt embarrassed in front of my workmates because he was so unprofessional at a public event. Whatever example you want to use. Ultimately, why do we break up with them? And we say it because I'm tired of being this way. I am tired of being this way. So we make a change. So do we believe in the who, what, where, when, or why? We most certainly do. It's how our world works. And this is why Spirit says this will take work on your part to undo that. Whatever you're holding in your cup right now that you perceive as far as life and what it's worth, what its capabilities are, what's possible, what's not possible, what your limitations are, what you can expect. It took work to build that. And it's going to take work to undo that. And see, Spirit can give you the aha to say, oh, I see it. Do you see it? Great, now change your state of being. Well, crap. Because all I wanted to do was get a feel-good moment, which goes back into the whole positivity thing, and then turn on the boob tube and watch my episodes. I didn't want to actually do work. I just wanted to feel positive about it and keep my life the same. No, sweetheart, you got to do work. or you're not going to get the goal. It's not going to change. And once you have that and you get the work done, then you'll come to the point of understanding why you would change this being your life. And that's when the magic happens, because you realize not just a slice of pie that's on your plate, the whole pie. The whole pie. And what you've been adding to it this life. Nope. No more. Not working for me. This is not making me feel connected. This is not bringing me the state of being that I wish to experience. And we don't know what we need to experience just yet. That's the uncomfortable part. Because we want what's good first. We want the change first before we give up the icky part. We don't want to sit with the icky part and have to realize and accept and be in the middle of what doesn't work, because it makes us feel like a failure. You are not a failure. It's shedding a skin. And when you get into the animal totem and everything else, that right there, that is snake medicine in its finest. Shedding the skin. It's a painful process. We don't like it because we shy pain. If it's painful, it's bad. We should be feeling positive. We should be feeling good. No, I'm going to tell you, in order to truly let go of something, you need to mourn it. You need to be able to sit there and understand as it peels off you inch by inch what it is that you're letting go, how it was created, what its purpose was. Being grateful for that purpose and understanding I need it no longer, and then watching another inch shed off until you get to the bottom of it and you have all new skin. And then you're ready for the new experience. It's a process for a reason. It was built into the way things work. And we can try to avoid it with toxic positivity all we want. I'll just feel good about it. But we don't feel good inside dead skin. If it's dead, take it off and shed it. You are creation. You are alive. And that is your state of being. And if it's not bringing you that, shed it off. Let it go. That is the essence. And that is the understanding of how to let it go. Not some fancy guru just saying, let it go. Just be positive. Just let it go. And just be positive. If you could just be positive, then you've let it go. Because inevitably, as explained previously, there's the push-pull. And there comes the pull into the denser energies. And there are you pushing away from it to become positive again. Just shut it off and let it go. Go through the grieving process. Go through the mourning. Go through the gratefulness of the understanding of what it represented and what it was there for. And shed it. And we've all been to an experience like that before, and we all understand how painful it was. We want to avoid it. I'm going to tell you, don't avoid it. Seek it. Seek it out. Because that is the path to liberation. That is the true path to freedom. Transforming. Not painting it with positive, pretty pictures. Transforming. And what comes afterwards is a gratefulness to be alive. An appreciation. An expanded sense of what is capable of from a state of being. That's not positive. That's being. And there's a difference. And there are those that will say, well, no, that is what we consider to be positive. But that's not commonly how positivity is being used in today's culture. Just be positive. About what? Let it go. But understand what letting it go really means, according to Spirit. Final paragraph. And I quote, without the source of inspiration coming from you, no change is possible. Despite the idea of divine intervention, we cannot uncreate what you have created because you create as powerfully as we create. The divine intervention you are always seeking has been and always will be your own. Until you give that to yourself from within yourself, the divine cannot work through you. It is the paradox of the universe. What you seek is what, in fact, what you already are. End quote. So let's dive into that paragraph. And this comes to the point of understanding again, you are the one that bound yourself to the jail cell with your mind. You created it. It is what you would say your karma. It is only your belief that keeps it in existence because it's your creation. Why? Because you are creation. But you don't really believe that. You don't really believe your creation. You believe this was all created for you, and that it's a complex series of this and that. And if you change this, then instead you'll get that. And this and that doesn't really matter, because if it did, in this world, we believe that if you're financially abundant, happiness follows. Financial abundance will bring you joy. So why are there so many miserable rich people? Miserable people. Have you ever served one of them? And no, not all. There are those that are truly grateful. There was a story that I saw of a star, and she was on Game of Thrones. And supposedly, according to the story, she went to a bartender for a drink and gave her the drink, tossed him as 20 as a tip. Tried to give her change. She said, no, that's for you. I worked in this industry before, and I understand what it's like. Keep the change. So he got the change and a $20 tip. And she went back for a drink throughout the night at the event and continued doing the same thing. That's a sense of gratefulness of being abundant. And sharing such a small thing with someone else that meant so much. And it shows a level of integrity from this actor or actress that really shows they remember where they came from and what it was like to do without. So it's not everyone, but that being said, we've all had experiences with that, and are they really happy? Does financial abundance bring an open state of being that emanates joy and happiness? Or do we have that confused? Do we really understand what joy and happiness is? Because again, we link joy and happiness based on the physical world around us. So if I'm going to be happy, it's because I'm rich. Well, I'm not rich now. So what needs to change? Well, the first thing is I need to change and be rich. Okay, well, how am I going to get there? Okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And I'm going to go to school for this, 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 and this. And then I'm going to work for this, this, and this. But now I've got school loans for this, this, and this, and a mortgage, and 2 kids. So I'm paying off all this stuff, and I'm still not rich. So I'm still not really happy. But I'm content, at least sort of, with what I have, is what I call life. Hmm. And then there's the ones that get what they want and blow it all away or are still not happy. Our sense of idea of happiness and joy is based on the who, what, where, when, and why. Which means when we go into creating joy with that understanding of what that is, we are creating karma. Because if the who, what, where, when, and why changes, then at that point in time, we lose our happiness and we lose our joy. And so we have to be bound to whatever it is we're doing to keep the sense of the abundance coming in so we can continue to be happy. But the truth of the matter is, we're miserable doing the who, what, where, when, or why to keep the abundance flowing. We hate it. But we got to keep doing it because we need the abundance, because that to us is happy. That brings a sense of joy. Brings a sense of completeness. Does it really? Because I'm kind of not seeing that reflected in your face. You kind of have that sourpuss look. So does that really bring you joy? Maybe many of us are confused on what joy and happiness really is. Maybe we got it wrong. Maybe we were taught the wrong thing. And maybe that's what Spirit's trying to tell us here. Is that we have it backwards. Does happiness and joy spring from a state of being that doesn't depend on who, what, where, when, and why? We look at the whole thing of a state of joy from a state of being that is without condition. He's talking about esoteric stuff. Okay, just sit back, get the popcorn because it's going to be entertaining because I have no idea what he's talking about. It just feels good. Go, let's hear about it. No, it's not that complicated. Us happiness and joy from a state of being that is not depending on who, what, where, when, and why. So the next thing that you should ask is, okay, well, what is that? Well, the Spirit can't explain that to you. Your mind cannot possibly understand that until you are willing to let go of the who, the what, the where, the when, and why, and your addiction of keeping your attention on that as the cause of the phenomena around you. It is your mind, and what you're chasing is the construct, your thoughts and emotions, which gives the physicality around you a sense of realness, when it's not. It is your mind in that moment. You give the meaning to it. You make it real. You are creating that, not the situations. Until you are willing to accept that and realize you've had it wrong, there's no way anything can introduce you to what God created. Not going to happen. Why? Because you're not willing for it to. You are not willing for it to happen. You have to complete the first step. Acceptance and realization. I should say realization and acceptance of it. Because no one can break your free will. If they could, don't you think they would have done that already? And I said it before and I'll say it again. If God will not unwill your will, nothing can. It's not possible. It's not possible. And so understand when we go into the next part of this paragraph why Spirit says, despite the idea of divine intervention, we cannot uncreate what you have created because you create as powerfully as we create. This is Spirit talking to you. Whether you want to call them enlightened beings, angels, dakinis, whatever you want to call them, divinity, they just said, despite the idea of divine intervention, which we love to use. Stop me from doing what I'm doing. Help me change my life when I'm unwilling to change it. It's literally how we pray. Keep him in my life even though he wants to leave me. Don't let my boss fire me for doing wrong even though they want to. Our prayers is all about breaking free will. And then we step back and say, God doesn't answer prayers. Yeah, do you understand free will? It's an important question. Do you understand free will? So they cannot uncreate what we have created. The only mind that can is yours, because it's all happening in your mind. You cannot change what I'm creating, because it's my energy within the light of God. It's my reflection. I have to change that. Only I can do that because of free will. I get to define my experience. I get to create my state of being. And there is no limit. And that's easily said. It's a nice concept. But until you understand creating a state of being and really understand that from its essence and take full responsibility for that, you cannot test it. And you cannot even begin that until you understand what you're currently creating. And again, realize and accept it. And the most powerful part of that statement that they said was, you create as powerfully as we create. Sorry, what? Come again? What did divinity just say? You create as powerfully as we create? That's a showstopper. So, Spirit just said that our creation's as powerful as their creations. Well, shouldn't there be ones more powerful than others? I mean, divinity should be more powerful, right? But if it is more powerful, it's kind of assumed that it can overpower something else, isn't it? Understand the essence of why they just said that. If I am more powerful than you, let's just say, oh, we'll just name me, Archangel Corban. Yay, I'm an angel. An archangel at that. Truly divine. Pleased to meet you. Obviously, more divine and more powerful than you. Bow at my grace. Okay, here we are. So the premise here is that I'm more powerful. So at this point, if I'm more powerful, then wouldn't that allow me to overpower you? And if I'm as divinely intent as I say that I am, and I can end your unalignment of your mind with a thought, because, hey, I'm more powerful, then why would I not do it? Why would I not do it with everybody? Just boom. Cue moment from Star Trek. Let me snap my fingers and make it happen. Because I am, as he says, omnipotent. Well, why would I not do that? Because it wouldn't have any effect. I can snap as much as I want. I can't change your mind. Because free will. Because of free will. Now, what could certainly change is a degree of understanding of the angle of light that we are within God's will. Absolutely. Absolutely. But does that change the power of it? Only to the degree of the person perceiving it. Because when God created, It didn't put more of itself over here and less of itself over there. It didn't segment itself to give rounds of degrees of importance. I am. It is. You are. So is everyone else. And we're all part of that same grace. Understanding that is understanding eternity, which is what Spirit says we are currently all within. So understand you create as powerfully as we create. The divine intervention you are always seeking has been and always will be your own. Until you step into your own divinity, which is the light that God created, don't worry about what other people say divine is. Understand what Spirit's point of view here is. You are created within God. You are a spark of light within that being. The divine intervention you're always seeking has been and always be your own. Because no matter what degree of divinity is standing before you that it supposedly uses to announce itself, it cannot undo your will. And I'll say it again. If God will not unwill your will, nothing can. Because in order for it to say that it can, it's saying it's going to change what God created. It's going to uncreate what God created and create it a new way. Good luck with that. That is truly an ignorant point of view because it doesn't understand what God created and it doesn't understand it is. It is. We work within that light. So the divine intervention you're always seeking has been and always will be your own. And why do they say that? Why do they use the word divine intervention you're always seeking? If you get to the point of realizing and accepting, and the first part is done, we're not looking at the slice of pie of karma reading, we have examined the whole pie. And we realize, I don't want to bake this way anymore. I am no longer baking pies this way. Period. Not an option, not playing. We're done here. Okay, you go through the mourning process, the acceptance process, the grateful process, the releasing process, dead skin pulled off, new skin coming out from underneath, glowing possibility, gratefulness, your cup is empty. It's now ready to be filled. Okay, you're no longer accepting the dense, negative, or positive, expansive, and you now choose the other option that Spirit is teaching us here, exists, and you're looking now willing to experience the state of I am, which taps into your mind as God created it. Not dependent on who, what, where, when, and why. It is. So who, what, where, when, and why can happen around you in this life, and it won't matter because you are. Does this sound vaguely familiar to many spiritual disciplines that says something down the line of they found a state of mind where they were in oneness and peace regardless of the circumstances around them? Sound familiar? That's what Spirit's talking about. And it's keeping it simple on how to get there. Now, the divine intervention that they're talking about is you realizing your state of mind as God created it, period. That is your angle to divinity. Because when you perceive it, because you're willing to now, and you accept it, at that point, you undo what you created. And how would you do it? Except from your place of divinity, the spark of light, whatever you want to call it, that God created. It is the realization of that, the undoing of all the pies you have baked, all the karma you have manifested throughout all your lifetimes. Because all of them are based on the thoughts and the emotions and the belief that that experience, that state of being, not the physical situations, the state of being connected to those thoughts and emotions, to who, what, where, when, and why, is real. And when you realize it's false and realize it doesn't work, and then move into acceptance of your mind as God created, why would any of that still affect you? When you finally realized that you no longer wanted that state of being, I don't want to be this way anymore, and you said that out loud and meant it about whatever situation in your life, were you bound to it karmically anymore? Did the thoughts and emotions stir up like it did, with the intensity that it did, of pulling you into the situation over and over again, helpless, dragging you? And we've all had those situations. We know they're bad for us, but there we are knocking on the door to get back in their bed on the weekend at 3 o'clock in the morning. Whoops. We've all done it. Once we realize, I don't want this state of being anymore. Did it pull us like it used to anymore? Did it attract us? Were we like a moth to the flame? Or were we finally able to break orbit and break free? And why? Because we no longer believed in the emotional state of being of who, what, where, when, and why. We were no longer connected to the thoughts of who, what, when, and where, why. We had broke the karma. We uncreated what we had created, whether it was this life or the last. And many times for us, we go through such amount of pain that is not necessary because we get trapped into the who, what, where, when, and why, and have no context for it because it happened in another life. The person we're attracted to was from another life. So we don't remember the who, what, where, when, and why. And since emotions are timeless, example, you had a situation of seeing a spider when you're a kid. You're an adult now. You're still terrified of spiders. Does that emotion have any time to it? Nope. Still just as fresh as it was from when you were a child. In fact, it probably aged well and added some textures to it as you got older. Not dealing with that karma? Well, guess what? You come in next life and you see a spider, all that's right there for you. Except you have no logical reason why. Why am I afraid of flying? I've never had an issue with flying before. Why am I terrified of it? Why indeed? Let's just give it a fancy psychological name and prescribe you some medicine. And we're good. So it's a lot more complicated in that sense as far as how it comes together, but the solution to it is still the same. It's seeing it head on. It's seeing the game for what it is and seeing why it is not true. And the key is in that space of understanding. It doesn't matter what physically just happened. The state of being that you're in at that exact moment is your mind. You are creating that. And yes, most certainly, you have the option to stop the denser energy and tap into something more positive to attempt to expand it so that you're not experiencing the denser energy. Comma, I'm going to add, however, the positive is just another polarity. It did not get you to realize the state of being. Being positive doesn't get you into the state of what God created. Because the positive, in the way that you are using it, is still toxic. And the reason why is because it is still based on who, what, where, when, and why. Which still creates karma. If you tap into the state of being, of I am, regardless of the circumstances, then you end the karma. Not because you don't want to feel negative. You don't want to feel denser energy. You do it because you are seeing the truth. I don't want to play this game anymore. And that's all the difference in the world. And that's why Spirit says, until you give that to yourself from within yourself, the divine cannot work through you. Because you're unwilling for it to. The divine cannot convince you your reality is false in the way that you're using it. If it could, it would have. But I'll say it one more time. If God will not unwill your will, nothing can. Period. Not a discussion. Not an option. That leaves you. Because you're the only one who can. Because that's the way things were created. It's one of the principles of the working universe. And we can create stuff on top of it and pretend to ignore the rest of it, but it's not going to change it. So when you have things that says that it's divine and say, we'll take your pain, just give it up. We'll take it from you. How? How is it going to do that? If you're not willing to undo the karma, how is it going to take it from you? Why didn't God just do it? Oh, they're acting on God's behalf. God didn't need to say anything. There's no pain needed in this world. It could have just made everything perfect. But it's not. The only one that has undone what you have created is you. From beginning to end. There are those that have been there to remind you of this fact, like I'm reminding it to you now. There are those who have been willing to walk through the fire with you to get you to see that you can undo this in a moment's notice. But they didn't snap their fingers and do it for you. Not once. Until you give yourself that from within, the divine cannot work through you. Final statement of that paragraph. It is the paradox of this universe. What you seek is what in fact, what you already are. And we get told that in so many ways, so many different spiritual disciplines, so many sacred writings. That is encoded in so many ways in their writings, in their teachings. Understand the great mystery and how simple it really is. You want the divine. You want peace. You want completeness. And you want it from a sense of being. You want the state of I am. And no matter how many times you buy things in this world, doesn't get it. No matter how many times you start new relationships with them promising to be the one to give you what you need, yeah, falls short. Expectations. No matter how many times you switch jobs because this is going to be the one that fulfills that sense of purpose, it grows dull. Whatever we do in this world and whatever we seek in this world, what we're looking for is inside of us. And what Spirit is saying here, as with all those other teachings, is what in fact what you already are. And understand the concept. What are we already? What are they talking about? They're talking about what we are is what God already created, which is our mind as it exists within it, as an experience, as a point of light. It hasn't changed. Just like free will can't be unbroken. Hasn't changed. From the moment everything sprang into creation, it still is happening now. It still is. There is no time there. Time is in our minds here. Because that's what we perceive. So when you get into understanding, and that gets into some really esoteric stuff. What? Time doesn't exist? What the hell are you talking about? I'm looking right at the clock and a minute just went by. To prove time exists. I get it. You can't understand what's on the other side of that sliding scale, all that esoteric stuff that they keep dumping on us. The wonderful, there is no time, everything is now, this, that, and everything else. That's all great. But you know what? That should be really a reference. And what we should really be talking about is, a realization and acceptance right now of what we're truly creating. Because until we grok that, until we get that, we don't have the mind to understand those other aspects. And the reason why is because in order to understand that, you have to tap into what God already created. Well, in order to tap into that, you need to be in your right mind. You need to be perceiving your mind within that as God already created it. And as long as we've had no realization and no acceptance that what we're doing is not connecting us and we are not happy with our sense, complete in a sense of being, we can't tap into that. And if we can't tap into that, there's no way to explain any of those esoteric concepts because you are not in your right mind. So it becomes impossible. You need your mind in order to perceive it because that's your grounding point within it. And you can't get that until you empty your cup of what you currently already are holding. So thank you for joining us on this episode. I hope that we went really deep today, but at the same time, it was really good stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go ahead and work on episode 5 to get that out for you. And again, for Spirit Decoded, please give us a like and please click the subscribe button so that you get notified when we release the next video. And as always, please visit our Facebook page at Ethos Communing and give that a like. So this way you'll be notified on Facebook whenever we release a new section of channel work so you can actually read it and consider it before we do the breakdown video. And please give us a